Good evening. Welcome to the Jon Gaunt Show. Good evening, Britain. There's so much to talk about today. Kemi Badenoch, as far as I'm concerned, this afternoon set the Conservative Party conference on fire. I've criticised her in the past, but she was brilliant today. She's going to scrap stamp duty. That's if she gets elected. That's bound to help so many people in this country. There's also a whole load of initiatives about saving the great British pub by basically reducing or getting rid of business rates. Hospitality have been moaning about this for ages. And also, I think she brought back a little bit of Mrs. Thatcher today, a little bit of Thatcher grit back to politics. So one of the questions, and there's a load to talk about tonight, is this. Could she be the next Mrs. Thatcher? She's been pretty useless this year, but the last Prime Minister's questions she was good at. She had Starmer on the rack. I thought she handled herself well as well on Sunday on that Laura Kunsberg programme. And this nonsense about if she sends back 150,000, where they're going to go, she doesn't care, and nor do the rest of the British public. I think she is more in tune with the British people than Keir Starmer, who's over in India at the moment talking football. The guy's a prat. But of course, it won't come down to Kemi versus Starmer. It's Kemi versus Reform. And so my question again is to you tonight. Is there any way you'll switch your allegiance away from Reform? Could you ever build trust again in Kemi and indeed Conservatism? But did you think she did well today? I think she hit a lot of the main points. For me, anyway. I'd like to know what you think about that. So I'm saying today in my little background, a star is born. And then next to it, I've got him. And I've got the terms, Gary Neville, of course. A star is torn, and then a new one, basically. I think you know what I mean by that. I thought it would die down by now, but it's not. People, ordinary football fans, are calling him a traitor, a coward. Can he survive this? Sky have said they've got confidence in him at the moment, but will Sky change their mind? There's a massive campaign for people to stop paying for their Sky subscription. I thought most people were doing that anyway with one of those dodgy sticks. Separate issue, and I don't condone it, of course. But he's a fallen footballer. He's no longer a star in most people's eyes. He's dragged Sky Sports into a real chaotic situation. And of course, now the videos are coming out of him not singing the national anthem. So Gary Neville, once an England hero, now a national embarrassment. Or is that unfair? So another question. Should Sky sack him? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. We're live. We're unfiltered. We're uncensored. It's the Jon Gaunt say. The Jon Gaunt Show. Have your say now. Now, that's a pretty packed agenda before we start. But it's also just been announced that they've released, well, they're going to release, two of the other people who they've had in custody questioning the jihad, al-Shame or whatever. That's apt, isn't it, as well? That they're going to release the other two. They're now saying they know that it's terror. What they're not sure about is if he worked alone, was he a lone wolf? But now they know. And they know, they're saying, because he, in the midst of the attack, phoned 999 and claimed a responsibility for it. Again, this story is incredible. You could hardly make this up. But the police have taken the best part of a week to finally say it's terrorism. Why? Is this, again, people in the establishment pussyfooting around the issue because he's an Islamist terrorist? I said yesterday, the day before, days ago, most normal people knew exactly what was going on. And what if you were Jewish, having to sit there with this threat? Are there other terrorists out there at the moment who want to kill you? Add into that, of course, this absolute horrific demonstration yesterday in our top universities, where these insensitive Burks thought it was okay to say, oh, free Palestine, queers for Palestine, and all the rest of it. Whilst these people in Manchester have been under threat, 2 Jewish people dead, but also it was the 2nd anniversary of the massacre in October. It's a disgrace. And Neville does tie into this because he seems to think flying the British flag, or he confuses the British flag with the flag of St. George, but he thinks flying the flag is wrong. And I was going to move on from him. I don't want to call for him to be sacked, but I do want to know what you think, because it's dragged on, hasn't it? And normally when a story drags on like this, the bottom line is it's not going to go away. I don't think Neville will survive. What do you think? I'd love your opinion, and I'd like it now. So look, there's lots of homework there for you. Loads of different angles you can come in on. Kemi Badenoch, I'm saying today a star was born. I think she came over as a real leader. What do you think? Would you ever put an X next to a Conservative? Let's face it, the week started with everybody taking the mickey that there was hardly anyone there. But she electrified that hall today. And I think on some of those main subjects like scrapping business rates to revive the high street and hospitality and pubs, I think that's good. I think that's a positive proposal. Scrapping stamp duty, that will get the housing market moving, and it might get our kids into their own houses. And that's why I'd say, another reason why I say, was it Mrs. Thatcher version 2.0, so to speak? Or is it too early to say this? Because she doesn't have to come over as tough and hard. And obviously, she's thought through the policies. And if there's a criticism that we could make of Nigel Farage and Reform, is that every time they get questioned, it appears that their policies begin to fall apart. They don't seem to be as thoroughly worked out as the Conservatives. Now, maybe that's because the Conservatives have been in power. They've got people who've been MPs for years. They're better at it. I don't know. But as you do know, I have said I think Farage is the only man in Britain at the moment who's going to save us from this woke nonsense, this apocalypse, which is being brought to us by Keir Starmer. And should Keir Starmer be in India today? He sent Lammy to the memorial for the Jewish people who were murdered in cold blood in Manchester. Could he not have sent Starmer and Yvette Cooper to India? The trade deal's already signed. He's, of course, gone because we know what he is. He's a chicken. He's a coward. He's hiding. And he also prefers to be on the international stage than helping us back here in Blighty. So what I want to know today is there any way you would vote Conservative, or have they effed it up forever as far as you're concerned? The other big story, of course, is, and it's not going away, is your man, the footballer. Should Sky sack him? I don't really want to call for the sacking of him, to be honest. But what do you think? He was an England hero. Has he turned into a national embarrassment? I'd say he has. He's attacked the very people who buy the tickets, buy the kits, the replica kits, who have given him the millionaire lifestyle. From refusing to sing the anthem, to sneering at our flag, or more importantly, sneering at our people who wrap themselves in the flag. He's insulted the very fans who have made him rich. So some of them now are calling him a traitor or a coward. Sky TV are going to have to act one way or the other. They're going to have to come out with a clear positioning on this. They've stood by him for the moment, but should they carry on? What's your views? And of course, it comes down to a commercial decision. If people keep cancelling their subscription, then Sky will act, I presume. I'm not telling you to do that. Is it that important? There's another question. Tell me. But he is morphing into another Gary, isn't he? Gary Lineker, with a chip on his shoulder and sixth form politics in his dim head. Is that too harsh? So join in now, please. It's Kemi's rise, Neville's fall, and why Britain's fighting spirit seems to be back. Is she the new Maggie Thatcher? Get commenting now. That's not 5 likes. That's rubbish. Come on, let's get it going. Restream the stream if you fancy. It's the Jon Gaunt podcast, live and exclusive, of course, here on the Jon Gaunt TV YouTube page, also on Facebook, also on Twitter. I want your comments. You can come in at any angle that you want. Oh, and by the way, I've got some great news about the audience figures, which I'll give you in the next 5 or 10 minutes, so stay tuned for that. But if you want to donate to help these podcasts, just click that $sign down there and donate whatever you fancy or whatever you can afford, more importantly. And also, please go to www.buymeacoffee.com/Jon Gaunt and donate there as well. If you fancy one or the other, it's up to you. But you can, of course, watch for free. Make sure you've subscribed, which is free, to Jon Gaunt TV. Right, that's the adverts out of the way. Let's get to it. And what do you think about this jihadi? Jihad is his name. What about his dad and his mum? Surely they've got to be questioned. And what about the fact that only now, the police are saying, oh, it might be linked to Islamism, to fanaticism. It wasn't that fucking obvious from the beginning. And what about the Jewish people? How threatened are they? Maybe you are a Jewish person. I'd love to hear from you. And of course, we had the demos. So you can come in anywhere you fancy. Let's kick off. TV Steve Harris on YouTube says, to be honest, I'm beginning to like her. Yes, Steve. Well, that's because you're big enough to admit that. I was the same. I was expecting her to flop. I watched her on Laura Kunsberg. I thought, oh, hang on a minute. She's actually got some policies she thought through here. And then that speech today, I thought it was stunning. I thought it was basically a checklist of everything that most people want. You know, this other idea that she's got of deporting £150,000 a year. The BBC can't cope with it. Well, where are they going to go? And her attitude is, I don't really care. I love the attacks today on the Green Party, the attacks on the Conservatives, the attacks even on reform. Although, did you notice she only mentioned reform or Nigel Farage once? She came over as really confident. Is she the new Maggie Thatcher? Andy says, I don't agree with Phil Neville, but hasn't he got a right to say what he wants? Isn't that what we're blaming Starmer for? Andy, yeah, that's a very good point. Free speech, and he's entitled to it. Of course he is. But it wasn't just free speech, was it? It was at a time where he actually implied that the reason the 2 Jewish people died or were murdered was because of people putting up flags, that's where the division starts. Well, that's ludicrous. And he has to be called out for it. And also, added on top of that, of course, is it's those very people he was slagging off who have made him a millionaire. And, of course, his talent. That's where I say, you know, when people say I'm a free speech absolutist, I always think, no, you're not. When push comes to shove, you've got to have some values and some morals. It's like those students yesterday. Do you think that demo should have gone ahead? No. And it shouldn't have been for the government to even have to ban it. People's own sense of common decency, their own morals, I would have thought would have said they wouldn't do it. But we've got a weak government mean, Starmer has not really said anything, has he, about our fractured society. He's gone off to India and he's hoping it's all going to go away. The man is a charlatan. Anyway, we'll move on. PJ Davenport, put a link to the live stream then. What are you on about? You're obviously watching it because you're commenting. Sky too woke to sack him, says Craig Urquhart on Facebook. Maybe because they didn't sack Jamie Carragher, did they? I don't know whether that's the case. I think it'll come down to pounds, shillings, and pence, my friend. If they lose enough subscribers, and I'm not advocating you stop paying them, but what I'm saying is if they do, then maybe they will act. I just think I thought over the last couple of days, he would have tried to alter his position a bit and say, look, on reflection, I shouldn't have really said it in that way. But by the same token, of course, more's come out. The builders, where he told them to take the flag down, they're saying, well, should we take down the Moldovan one then? And a flag from another country. He wasn't bothered about them. It was just our flag. He thinks our flag, like a lot of uber liberals, he thinks our flag is somehow fascist or is somehow targeting minorities. It's rubbish, I know, but that's what he thinks. And that disgusts me. And you know what? This is my free speech. That's me having my say. But you can have yours as well. Thank you, Craig. Mick Frinton-on-Sea. My Skybox has gone back. There'll probably be a Tory and... Oh, sorry, it's separate subjects. My Skybox has gone back. Thank you. There will probably be a Tory and a Reform coalition, which will be good for the country, says Mick in Frinton-on-Sea. If you'd said that to me yesterday or the day before, I'd have said you're mad. But actually now, I can see where you're coming from, Mick. What did you think of her, though? What did you think of her? Did you think she was formidable? Because I did. I thought she came over as really strong. And that's what we want, isn't it? Because at the moment, we've got Nigel, got nobody else. Starmer, Ed Davey, get back on your roller coaster. Go and drown yourself in a kayak, you twat. Right, but where's the leadership? And then we've got that Zach guy who's not even called Zach from the Green Party. He's a disaster, that bloke, and he loves himself. If he was chocolate, he'd eat himself. Oh, this PJ Davenport, you're really getting on my nerves. He's written 201, whatever that means. And he says, open up the live stream then. It's open, you pillock. Anyway, I've had enough of you. Clear off. Graham Fletcher, we want free speech. Gary Neville chooses free speech to say what he thinks. Are we blaming Starmer for not allowing free speech? I can't work it out. I think I've just explained where I'm coming from on it, Graham. Of course he can express that opinion, and he has. And that's why I didn't go into him really hard over the last couple of days. But when you hear more about it, the fact that he let the other flags stay up, the fact that he doesn't sing the national anthem when he plays for our team. I mean, I would not allow anybody in any sport. We've had it before with a couple of rugby players. Wayne Rooney got slagged off for it once, didn't he? But then they realised he couldn't learn the words, but then he used to sing it. Everybody should sing the national anthem in a sporting event. And if you don't want to sing it, go and play for another country. That's my opinion. That is my opinion. That's my free speech. So, Graham, although I accept he has free speech, he's also insulted many, many people, because I don't think that the reason we've got division in this country is, as he said, and I quote, I hope this quote is right, that it's mainly angry, middle-aged, white. He put the word white in there, white men doing it. That's what disgusts me, because that's the value judgment. And I don't think, well, you can be a liberal if you want, Graham, and go, oh, everything goes. No. Okay, so that's one of the subjects tonight. What do you think about this terrorist? The police have come into the stunning conclusion he is an Islamist extremist. Oh, there's a surprise. And then, like yesterday, Jenrick got into trouble, didn't he, for separate communities? And I've been thinking about that overnight. Is it time we called a spade and said, when we talk about separate communities, The community that really separates itself out is the Muslim Pakistani community, isn't it? Now, I'm clever enough to understand why. It's to do with social deprivation. It will be to do with some element of racism. It will be something to do with language. But you've also got to say, and foreign policy, I guess. Why aren't Hindus doing it? Or Buddhists? Do you understand? Or people who came from the Caribbean who suffered terrible racism when they first arrived from us, the white settled community. Why are people scared to say what it is? Although I had a chat with a mate of mine today, she was going mad about generic. She said, I come from Handsworth. She said, it's a great place. It's very tolerant. Yes, it is predominantly black or Asian, she said, but so what? That did make me think again. So if you've got a view, I want to hear it. It's the Jon Gaunt Show. I'm with you for about another 20 minutes or so. If you want to make a comment, just write it up on the bottom, and then we'll read them out. And it all adds into the debate. If you want to donate, feel free. Press that little $sign and donate a couple of quid, whatever you can afford. Or you can go to www.buymeacoffee.com/Jon Gaunt. In a moment, I'll tell you about the audience. Denise Deacon says, let's face it, the only way is up for the Conservatives. Yes, I agree with that. They're competing with reform. But why has it taken reform doing well in the polls for them to suddenly change their policies? I won't sway from reform because the Conservatives had 14 years and were complacent and took us for idiots. I think that's a very fair. All of that is perfectly fair, Denise. The only thing I would say is Kemi hasn't been there for 14 years. She would argue, well, I've been working on the policies. She hadn't even told the whole cabinet about getting rid of stamp duty, which I think is the most pernicious, along with along with inheritance tax. You've already paid money on that. You shouldn't have to pay tax again. I've always believed that. Not that I'm going to have anything to give away. I'm skint, as you know. But by the same token, I think the stamp duty cut will help people. I think the high street it's never going to be saved, but it might revitalise. It might revitalise pubs and hospitality if they get rid of the business rates or make it a fairer system. We've talked about this before on the programme. So I think there were good ideas in there in what she had to say. And as I say, she hadn't told her cabinet because she didn't want this to leak out. It was a real political bombshell. That takes guts. That takes balls. I'm impressed by her. That doesn't mean I'm going to vote for her. I'll try to be fair and say, look, and I'll be interested to see how reform react to it, to be honest. Let's see what happens. At least politics will get interesting again. Starmer in India was part of the agreement we signed in the trade agreement, so he had to go. Well, Graham, are you trying to get the award for the most naive sucker watching tonight? He went this week. He planned the date because he wanted to basically take the headlines away from the Conservatives. He shouldn't have gone during the conference season. There's a kind of unwritten rule that you don't try to upstage whoever's conference it is. That seems to have gone out the window. Starmer will do any devious trick he can. He's trying to cling on to power. My point is, he didn't have to go. He could have gone later, or he could have sent somebody else. Or has he not heard of Zoom or the internet? I'm being a bit unfair there, because he's obviously loving it, because in India, they've got all these big posters of him. He's like Simon Cowell on speed over there. They'll soon find out what a snivelling, two-faced little shit he is. But for the moment, he's a hero. And he loves that. He absolutely loves it, doesn't he? So, Graham, I think you're wrong. Totally wrong. I think they're taking you for a mug. You were saying that scrapping stamp duty would enable people to buy houses, says Pamela Upchurch on Facebook. Do you think that's a good idea at the moment? Some people are saying that prices are going to decrease. Our pensions could be worthless and that we should all invest in gold. Yeah, I've heard all that as well. But if you're a young person, I think I bought my own first house when I was about 24. Kids now, I think the average age is getting on for 38, 40 because the deposits are so high. And if there's a correction in the housing market, I don't think that's the end of the world. says he, who hasn't got a house at the moment. I think getting rid of stamp duty will invigorate the market, actually, Pamela, but we'd have to see. But she's not in power. So it is the old adage, when you're not in power and got no chance of being in power, you can say what the hell you like. Look at the Liberal Democrats. Look at that twat from the Green Party. Yeah? He can say whatever he wants. Do you see what I'm getting at? But I'm just saying, at last, politics has got interesting again, in my opinion. Joan Cotton. The Conservatives always con people, like promises that they can't keep, just like Starmer. It's all about change. We've got to give Nigel a chance. That's a fair opinion, Joan Cotton on Facebook. Thank you for it. She's not going to give Kemi a chance by the look of it. PJ Davenport, do you think I'm your personal Google service, pal? Do you let guests on? I have guests on sometimes. If you want to make a point, make a point. Otherwise, just fuck off, because you're getting right on my nerves. And in fact, I'm not going to read out anything else you write up because you're a moron. Welcome to the show. The Tories change their leaders like their underwear all too often. Well, they certainly have recently. I think reform need a chance, but it could take them a couple of years to adjust when in power, if they do get into power. Well, Ronnie, on Facebook, I think there's a very good chance they are going to win. Of course they are. I haven't changed my mind on that. I'm just saying it's interesting that she came out fighting. I thought she made a great speech. And as I say, I thought on Laura Kunsberg, she was great, very tough on migration. Of course, we can all say, well, you did have 14 years. How come they all went up? You know, when Boris was in charge, more people came in on boats and all the rest of it. I accept all that. I'm not here to defend Kemi. I'm saying I thought she did well today. What do you think? Let's talk about it. Where we go next? Let's go to Niven Casey on YouTube. Hi, John. I like Kemi, but she's got an uphill task. You can say that again, Kemi. While the Tory party is full of Lib Dems. They're currently a spent force and can only get their respect back if they become Conservative again. Well, I agree, Niven, but don't forget what she said at the weekend, and lots of people are up in arms about it. She said when she gets into power, and she talks in that way, she will rip up the ECHR. And she has said that any MP sitting at the moment, or any prospective MP for the Conservatives, who don't agree with her on that particular policy, they're not going to be in the Conservative Party. She's going to purge them. So that kind of partly answers your accusation, Niven. That's why I'm saying again, I think it's interesting. You turn if you want to, but this lady's not for turning, or whatever the quote is. I thought there were real echoes of Margaret Thatcher. You might think I'm getting carried away, and that's fine. That's what debate is all about. Right now, here's the good news. We've done it. 1.5 million views. I said it might take to the end of this week. It happened very late last night. I haven't even had a chance to write a letter to all the people, an email to all the people who have donated, but thank you. So I do apologize for that. But 1.5 million views. That's what you and I have achieved. Your support has made this happen, both with your donations, but also watching every day. The numbers are going through the roof. Thank you very, very much indeed. And look, I don't think there's been a time when an independent media is more important than now. Now politics is getting interesting again. So if you'd like to donate, you know what to do. www.buymeacoffee.com/Jon Gaunt, or just click the little button, the button at the moment at the bottom, and you can get what you want. All right, that idiot's come back. Look, this is boring. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to put you out of your misery. Here we are. Block user. That's him gone, and I've deleted the comment. So good night, mate. You go off and listen to Radio 5 Dead. I'm sure it's more up your street. We don't need you. Craig Urker, as for Kemi being the new Thatcher, unfortunately, she doesn't have any council's houses left to sell because all the illegals are in them. Well, now, not only that, Craig, if we're being fair, Mrs. Thatcher did not insist, did she? she did not insist that the money from the council house sell-off, which, by the way, I fully agreed with it, the way she turned us into a property-owning democracy. It was radical, and she was right, but we didn't rebuild the stock. Your facetious comment about the refugees or the migrants, I accept, though, is true. There is no social housing. There is no cheap housing at the moment. We are in our right state. By all accounts, Kemi is lazy, which explains her poor performances at the dispatch box, says Simon Hatt. That has certainly been the accusation. But this is a woman with 2 degrees in engineering and in something else. I think that's maybe just the kind of, dare I say it. And I'm not defending, I do sound like I'm defending, I'm not. I will probably still vote reform at the moment. One speech doesn't make, one swallow doesn't make the summer, does it? If you know what I'm getting at. But I was impressed today. And I think maybe it's a lazy trope for not you, Simon, but that people have suggested she's just lazy. And I thought the last time Prime Minister's questions, she was brilliant. And I also think, and I'm not trying to sound trendy liberal here, I don't think she's been very good. You're right. She misses an open goal now, well, most of the time. However, Starmer is a right, macho, sexist pig. I don't think he'd behave like that to a man. I think he does a lot of mansplaining, or whatever the term is. I think he puts her down a lot, and I think it's unnecessary. Put downs are all part of the pantomime of Prime Minister's questions. I accept that. But sometimes I just think he's just plain horrible. And is there any need for that? Says John, who's just banned someone for daring to say something he didn't like. I wish I could afford Sky so I could get the pleasure of sending the box back to them, says Jackie Ward. Fair enough. Neville must have another agenda, because for the life of me, I can't work out what he has against the white people of the country that gave him his fame and lifestyle. No, nor can I, Jackie. Maybe when he went for that walk in the woods with Keir Starmer, you've seen the photos in the papers today. Maybe he's been offered a seat. Maybe he's going to become a Labour MP. I don't know. Although I doubt he will, because no one's going to vote Labour, are they, next time? Good evening, John. No, it's too little too late from the opposition leader, Kemi, says Mick Smith. She's had a chance week after week to speak up and put out. And what about your man from Dudley, reparations? Oh, you've gone from one subject to the other with no punctuations, mate. But fair enough. I'll come back onto that in a moment. He's done all right. Right, okay. So let's do the first part of that. She's had time to claim all this. She would argue she's been working on the policies. And that policy has got 200 pages in it. You know, her policy of deporting people. It is thought out. Whether you agree with it or not is different. So that's a little bit of a defense for her. But also, would that mean then, if she suddenly came out with some great ideas that really ticked all your boxes, you'd still not vote for her? Or you wouldn't vote for her because of what Boris did, or Lettuce, Liz Truss, or one of them? See, I think that's a bit naive, Mick. And I don't think you are a naive fella, because you've been listening and watching to me for ages. So I think you're being a bit too harsh. I don't know. Tell me I'm wrong. And about Dudley, you're talking about Lenny Henry. Do you know what? Lenny Henry, it is funny what he's saying at the moment, and that makes a change, because ever since he met Dawn French, he's been about as funny as hemorrhoids, isn't he? Let's be honest about it. But I think it's a debate we need to have. 19 trillion, I think not, Lenny Henry. And how would you do it? And who would you pay? And, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know what his agenda is either at the moment. Let's move on. And loads of people, nobody donating though. Kenrick and Kemi are just sounding like reform, and Nigel is an ex-Tory. The old Tories were law and order, strong borders, low taxes, home ownership. Maggie would have put the Royal Navy in the Channel years ago. Mick, Frinton-on-Sea, I agree. But let's just go through some of those things. Strong and law and order, that's what she's saying. She is saying that. Strong borders, she's saying she's going to deport 150,000 people a year, minimum. She is going to close the hotels. I know it's easy to say, much more difficult to do, but that's what she's saying. Low taxes, that's what she's saying. She's just cut stamp duty. She just said this ridiculous inheritance tax on farmers. She would reverse it. Come on, keep up with it. Criticise her if you want, fine. Home ownership. Well, getting rid of stamp duty, isn't that going to help home ownership? But I agree with you. Maggie would have put the Royal Navy in the Channel years ago. Yeah, she probably would have done. And that's what we should do. Like I keep saying, Army on the beach, Navy in the Channel, no squeezy soap, no hotels, all behind barbed wire, and we may get somewhere. Graham Fletcher says, I'm not a naive sucker and I'm no mug. Don't take it too personally. It's just my opinion of what you've said, Graham. I thought you were a bigger boy than that. Maybe those rumours are untrue. Of course, the conference convention has gone. Look at how this awful regime has made policy on the hoof and buried bad news whilst Parliament isn't sitting. Yeah, you're right, Simon. And Simon's referring back to what I said about Starmer should not be in India at the moment. It's wrong what he's doing. He's manipulating you. He's conning us again. Don't get me wrong. Trade deal's a great idea. And we've got to work with India. Massive population. And Indians love us. So, of course, let's get the deal done. Let's get them started on it. And, of course, Indian companies own a lot of our industries now. That's good. I'm with him all the way on that. And I wish him all the best. But as I said, Simon, the timing is not an accident. It's deliberate. It's a bit like the police suddenly announcing that he's an Islamist fanatic. Not Starmer, but he's an Islamist fanatic today. Jihad. Why is it taken so long? I don't understand it. But I'm only the son of a copper. I'm not a copper. Simon, thank you for your comments. Interesting. I think Kemi did well today, John. As well, she got some valuable points across very well, says Ronnie Hurst. Well, that's kind of what I'm saying, Ronnie. That's kind of where I'm coming from. But anyway, some people won't allow their prejudice. They've made their minds up. We're 4 years away from an election if Starmer manages to cling on. I think we've got to be thinking, guys, is there an alternative? And I think whoever said earlier that it'll probably end up that Nigel, Reform and the Conservatives will go into some form of coalition, I think that's probably right. I think that's probably correct. I bet the Tories rue the day they got rid of Boris, as it has blown them into oblivion since. They're done for the foreseeable future. Well, you know what? I was a big Boris fan, but we have got a problem with Boris. He let in 1 million illegals, didn't he? The so-called Boris wave. So I think Boris has kind of lost most of his credibility with the British public. I don't think he would. Don't get me wrong. I used to call him the rock and roll politician. Everybody knew him by his first name. And I think he would have been a massive electoral hit. But things have changed. What do they say? A week is a long time in politics. Well, a year and a half certainly is. I don't think he's coming back. And I think what I saw of Kemi today, she's showing great promise. Don't have to agree. That's the whole idea of the programme. Deadpan Barry says, are you a Kemi fanboy? Terrible. Well, I'll tell you what I am, Deadpan. I'm somebody who comes on here under my own name, and I don't go behind a silly avatar and a stupid name like you. And I've got the courage of my convictions. And if you actually heard what I've been saying tonight, I'm not saying that she's the absolute answer. I am asking, could she be the new Thatcher? I am saying, were you impressed? I am saying I was impressed, and I was certainly impressed by the stamp duty and the inheritance tax for farmers proposal. And I'm also with the hospitality idea. And I'm also think the getting tough on illegals and definitely ripping up the ECHR. All of those things are good things. But of course, Reform are promising that a lot of that as well. So if you manage to ever stop thinking in a binary fashion, look it up, Deadpan Barry, maybe you can come back and have a proper debate with me. Gary Neville sees himself as Andy Burnham's replacement as Mayor of Manchester. That's a pretty good call. I wouldn't disagree with that. Thank you. Why is reparations something we need to have a talk about? I've never owned a slave, and he's never been one. Lenny Henry, she's talking about. There's slavery still going on in Africa. Why? Well, indeed, all around the world. Go to Dubai, you'll see it. Why isn't he concentrating on that? I accept that. But what I said, Denise, I didn't say I agree with him. See, this is what people don't do. They don't listen to what I'm saying. I'm saying I think there is a time for a debate. Let's discuss it. I'm not afraid of discussing it. My wife studied, as part of her English literature, I think it was a master's degree, she studied American literature. And she read quite a lot of books about slavery, novels based around slavery. And when you see and read, and I read them as well, and it kind of changed my attitude, if I'm honest with you. I don't think Lenny Henry's 19 trillion or whatever it is reparations package is a good idea, but I wouldn't mind having the discussion. And I think we should. I mean, obviously, we've got to recognise we were the first to give it up. I saw a great play at the Royal Shakespeare Company about 2 years ago, which was about how when they scrapped slavery, you know who got all the compensation? The slave traders, not the individual slaves. You know, like now, if there was something like that, an atrocity, well, which is what it was a genocide of black people, crowded onto those boats, shackled, lying down, not being able to move, not going to the toilet, just doing it there. That's why so many of them died. And when they died, they just chucked them off the back. It was horrendous, right? But I'm still not saying, therefore, there should be £19 trillion given to Lenny Henry. Do you understand? I just think it's interesting. And it's interesting to learn more about it. And an open debate about it would do that. I'll get somebody now saying, you're a communist. I've already been accused of being a Femi fanboy. Lenny Henry misses an essential truth. He assumes that slavery was based on race. It wasn't. It was based on availability, and black Africans were available in huge numbers, sold by other black Africans. That's true. That did happen. It was also the norm until Britain ended it. I think you need to just look into that a little bit more, Simon. A lot of what you're saying, I agree with you, but let's have the debate. That's all I'm saying. Thanks very much to everybody who's watching or listening tonight. Don't forget, if you're listening on a podcast after the show, go to Jon Gaunt TV on YouTube and subscribe. You don't have to pay anything. It just means you become like a member, I guess it is. And then you get all the notifications when I'm doing an extra show. I am doing a show tomorrow, 6:30, of course, as normal. But I tend to do extra ones over the weekend. But I don't ever know when I'm going to do it. So join there, simple, then you'll know. Andy Borg, Jon Gaunt, I'm a Tory, John, and I've lost confidence and trust. Can we believe them? Andy, I think that's a very fair point. And I think I said that at the beginning. Can you trust the Tories? She's talking a good game. But would they just be the same old Tories? Because most politicians and political parties aren't they? So I understand where you're coming from. I do understand where you're coming from. But I can still say, well, that was a good speech. Because it was. Today's speech was bloody good. It's probably the best speech of all the conference speeches for all the parties, in my personal opinion. I mean, Jenrick's speech yesterday was rubbish, wasn't it? All the bit with the wig. You know what I mean? And he gets the wig out of the box. Well, he should get back in the box. Get in the box. I don't want to get in the box. If you get the reference, you get it. Anyway, so that's that. Right, I'm going to finish now. If you want to donate, feel free. www.buymeacoffee.com/Jon Gaunt, or just click the little $sign. Don't forget, this all helps to pay to keep these going. But also, it's important you tell other people. The reason why we've now got 1.5 million views is because you're talking about it. And as you talk about it, and as you pass the word on, and as you send out the links to other people, we'll get more and more. Because that's how the algorithm works on YouTube and on Facebook. My Facebook numbers are incredible as well. I've got a page and I've got a profile. Join both if you fancy. And also my X, Twitter, whatever it's called. Do that as well. But it's Jon Gaunt TV on YouTube where the core activity is. Simon Hatt, that's a good... I've watched that. Lecture by Professor Thomas Sowell, a black American academic. There's a lecture on it on YouTube. Yes, Simon. But like you might watch me, I wouldn't take everything I say to be absolutely 100% true. Go and watch some other videos. Read some books. And don't forget, when we talk about we got rid of the slave trade, we did many, many years before anybody else. But we were also the nation, particularly the Scottish, don't want to upset our Scottish viewers, who turned it into an industrial machine. That's the truth. That's the truth. So, but reparations, I don't see how it would work. That's all I'd say. And I think Lenny's just, well, he's got a book to sell, hasn't he? So fair dues to him. Jackie Walsh has given me the 3 red hearts. So it's time for me to go. Thank you for watching again tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it made you think about things. That's all I'm trying to do. Tomorrow I have another show. I'm sure there's going to be more coming out about this savage who killed the Jewish people. I'm sure there'll be more coming out overnight. But I'm beginning to question, why wasn't he known to the security services? Ex-girlfriend said, oh, yeah, I had to get rid of him. And, and he was married 3 times, evidently, at the same time. And what about what his dad said? His dad's a surgeon in hospital. Do you understand? There's a whole load of things there that, for me, aren't adding up. Maybe the police will give us clarity over the next few weeks. Simon Hatt, I'm not going to fall out with you. It's the end of the show, but he just says, you can't blame us for being better at it than anyone else. No, but you can say that's a historical fact. And you can say, well, I carry it as a shame, if I'm honest with you. I think the slave trade was horrific. Absolutely horrific. And I definitely apologise for it. But I don't understand how the reparations would work. But I'm saying we should have an open debate about it. Boris lost me completely when he apologised to Saint Jetard for the Industrial Revolution. He was probably egged on by his woke wife, Carrie. Oh, that's getting too heavy for me, Niven, but thank you very much. Right, I'm off before it gets even heavier. If you've got kids, give them a kiss, give them a hug. Hey, hey, hey. Don't forget to tell them you love them. I'll see you tomorrow at 6:30. Thank you.